So the Billy Napier era at Florida has ended. Despite the Gators grabbing a win on Saturday, and this was the report coming into the weekend that virtually no matter what the Gators did, Billy Napier was going to be fired on Sunday. And that came to pass. He is gone, he is out, and his run as the head coach of the Gators is over. It wasn't the tenure that I think a lot of people thought, myself included. When he got hired at that job, I thought, okay, he's going to lead them to be a SEC championship caliber program, which in turn would make them a national championship caliber program, and it never turned out that way. I think a lot of people expected this to come at the end of last season when they had one of the toughest 5-game stretches in college football history, and things went incredibly well for them. And the performance of DJ Lagway bought him another season, and then once they lost to South Florida early in the season, it kind of became, hey, this probably wasn't going to be a 9-3, 10-2 undefeated season anyway. And that became the writing on the wall. Was pretty clear that he was not going to make it out of this thing with his job. And here we sit. So now, Florida becomes the best job on the market, bar none. It is a better job than Penn State. Nittany Lions fans don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear a lot of things. It's a better job than Arkansas, despite a few weeks ago when we talked about how good the Arkansas job is, and there were commenters telling me that Arkansas is a top 15 job in the country. It is not. It is not a better job than Florida. It's not a better job than Penn State. Arkansas is not in that same category. Florida is now the best job open. And I think we're probably looking at a situation where it might not be the only job in the state at the Power 4 level that comes open by the end of the season after Florida State's performance against Stanford on Saturday night. Maybe the only thing that the Seminoles have going for them is that the game was going on at 2 o'clock in the morning and people had turned out for the night, because otherwise, if that was another performance, and maybe they got jobbed out of a touchdown at the end of the game, who can be sure. But Florida State is, I wouldn't be shocked if that job becomes open by the end of the season as well, because the Seminoles have lost 9 straight conference games, which just feels like a hell of a stat and sentence to say out loud. But it is the truth. That's probably another video for another day. Florida is now the best job, bar none. The recruiting base is outstanding. The facilities are spectacular. The money and fan base are there. The one problem that Florida has, and is probably the one problem that might make it less attractive to some coaches, is the stability factor. And it's not only a stability factor from the athletic department, it's the university. There are, I don't know the right way to say it without pissing people, there are political pressures, issues in the state that factor into that as well. But whoever takes that job is going to become the latest in a long line of coaches after Urban Meyer, who have not had the success that that fan base expects and believes that it should have year after year after year, and there's a reason for that. You'll have to figure that out. But Florida, bar none, is the best job available. And conceivably, is Florida a better job than Florida State? Yeah. Conceivably, it might be the best job that's going to come open due to a firing. Unless maybe the wheels fall off for Oklahoma and they decide to make a change. But I think Florida is a top 5 to 6 job in the country. And it's now opened and available. And that's a fan base and a group of boosters who are hungry for a winner. Over the course of the next 12, 24, 48 hours, there will be a lot of bluster about Lane Kiffin. And There's a lot, I think, to like about Lane Kiffin potentially going to Florida because he is a modern day old ball coach. He's got personality. He's engaging, interesting, compelling. He's got a lot of similarities with Steve Spurrier, outside of he didn't win the 1966 Heisman Trophy. Other than that, he's got a lot of similarities with the old ball coach. And by God, if there's one thing that we are captivated by, it is nostalgia. You look at I saw a TikTok yesterday, this is just a quick sidebar, of like who was the last fictional original movie character that became like a pop culture icon after Captain Jack Sparrow. And there's not many great answers. And that was 20 years ago. You know why? Because we are embroiled and in love with rehashing old, familiar stories. And I think that's true in football, too. It's why you get, second-generation coaches that you're like, you know what, I would like to see them succeed. And I think that it's not obviously second generation for Lane Kiffin from Steve Spurrier unless somebody's got some breaking news that hasn't been released yet. But Lane Kiffin is the modern-day Steve Spurrier. He's not afraid to say anything. Literally, he mocked Kirby Smart on the sidelines yesterday. And that was after making fun of Kirby Smart in a press conference earlier in the week. I don't know if Lane Kiffin takes that job. It's not a lateral move by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think Ole Miss fans, maybe the reasonable ones, maybe the unreasonable ones can't agree to this, but the reasonable ones can appreciate and understand that Florida's a better job than Ole Miss. It just flat out is. So I think that there are people who can understand and appreciate that that's not a lateral move despite being in the same conference. But if it's not Lane Kiffin, I don't know who it is that jumps off the page, because I'm here to tell you there will be a strong contingent of important Gator faithful that will try their damnedest to get John Gruden into Gainesville. And I think that's such a tough sell just from the look at the way things have gone for North Carolina. And there are some extenuating circumstances that I don't know that we need to get into on this podcast. But there are reasons outside of football, but also football related, for why things have gone incredibly poorly for North Carolina with Bill Belichick. And he's not the only one. Arizona State decided they were going to bring in a former NFL coach in Herm Edwards. That went disastrously. Lovie Smith was the head coach at Illinois. That did not go well either. I know that there are examples like Pete Carroll, who left the NFL, went to USC, and had success. It almost feels as if there's a pipeline of, if you are an NFL coach and you go to college, it does not go well for you, just as if there's the same pipeline of, if you leave college football for the NFL, that generally doesn't go well either. Nick Saban famously flamed out with the Miami Dolphins. Matt Rule, I think, is a very good college football coach. Did not have success with the Carolina Panthers. The list goes on and on and on. I don't see how you see what happens at North Carolina with Bill Belichick and go, yep, let's sign up for that same archetype. Let's be the next school who hires a former NFL coach. Now, I understand that the argument might be, well, John Gruden is better than Lovie Smith as a coach. John Gruden is better than Herm Edwards as a coach. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Is John Gruden a better coach than Bill Belichick? Results say no. So how and why are you signing up for that? Florida needs to stop worrying about winning the press conference. Florida needs to stop caring about everything other than who is going to win football games as our head coach, who is going to be the best candidate to lead us back to where we want to get to, who is going to interview and lay out the plan for, here is how we get to be an SEC title contender year after year, a national championship contender year after year after year. Because while John Gruden would get you a lot of attention and notoriety in the first week and a half or so after you make the hire, then what? I don't know. I think Lane Kiffin to Florida makes a ton of sense. I think Florida, if they want to jump to the front of the line of the John Gruden sweepstakes, there are going to be other names attached to that job too. I think Rhett Lashley is going to be somebody who's going to be talked about, the SMU head coach who has coached in the state before. I think that there's going to be somebody like Eli Drinkwitz who is going to be highly sought after by Florida from Missouri if they are unable to secure Lane Kiffin. But I think, make no mistake about it, Lane Kiffin is target 1, 1A, 1B, 1C, probably 2, 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D. And if he says no again, you keep throwing money at it until he says yes. That, to me, feels like the kind of natural progression of the job search for Florida. Is, all right, Lane, you said no. We'll try somebody else, but we'll circle back to you just to make damn sure that your final answer is no. Because it feels sort of like a match made in heaven. And if it's a match made in heaven, because you can feel somewhat right off the bat of whether a fit does or doesn't work. Brian Kelly at LSU does not work. Different discussion probably for tomorrow, because we got to talk about both Vanderbilt and LSU. But Lane Kiffin feels like a natural fit at Florida. And I'm here to tell you, if that were to happen, the rest of the SEC should be on notice, because I think he could turn that thing into a juggernaut real quick. Want to know your thoughts? Who should be the next head coach at Florida? Do you think Billy Napier deserved to be fired? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you get all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.